interpretation as of right now. And the technical information to be provided by Zeynep will be first delivered in Turkish, and then it will be translated into English and Spanish. And after that, we will activate the interpretation button, and then we will start the program.
Translation. After that, we will start translation and our program as we plan.
Merhaba, hoş geldiniz. Birkaç teknik uyarı
Hello, welcome. I'd like to provide a couple of technical warnings. Right now, there will be interpretation both in English and Spanish, and this is the first time that we are trying such a program, and we are very excited for it. First of all the participants' microphones are off right now. Let's say that you want to speak. After the speaker's speech is finished, please click Ask to Unmute. No, sorry, we will ask you to unmute, and when you accept that request, then your microphone will be unmuted. Apart from that, you won't be able to unmute yourself. But still, you can always ask your questions on the chat part. Coming to the language issue, both the broadcast on YouTube and here will be Turkish. However, the speaker will need to, the participants will need to pick a channel to listen to the language interpretation, because Turkish is not an option and Zoom is in terms of the languages. You will need to choose Korean to listen to the Turkish interpretation. When you click on the Korean flag, you will be able to hear the Turkish interpretation. You will need to select both Korean flag, and you will need to click on mute original audio so that you will not hear both languages. So I'm repeating once again, you will choose the Korean flag, and then you will click on mute original sound so that you will have a clear sound for the interpretation. And whichever language that the speaker wants to speak, you will need to choose that channel. So let's say that on your screen, you do not have the interpretation option. In this case, probably your application is not updated. We're asking you in that case to please update the application or use your mobile phones to participate. And this is all the warning that we have for now. We kept the sound closed. We have the microphones mute, not hear any extra sound. If you want to make any comments or if you want to say something, please write to us using the chat box and we will ask you to unmute. I hope this will be a very good meeting. It will be 4 hours, and I also wish a little bit of patience to everyone. So now our English and Spanish interpreters can also explain. They are providing the interpretation already. Has it been? Yes, I'm sure interpretation is being provided. Could the foreign participants write a chat message maybe to confirm that you can hear the interpretation? Okay, then interpretation instructions have been provided, and then we can start. I'd like to welcome everyone, both our participants coming from Turkey and our sisters participating from foreign countries are here with us. And actually, we wanted to organize this forum in Fındıklı in Eastern Black Sea on the 20th anniversary of the Women's March and due to the 5th International Action. There would be a one-week series of events covering Eastern Black Sea region, which would include various activities and events. But unfortunately, our plans were not destined to happen. And starting from the beginning of this year, we were faced with a pandemic. However, this did important for us to get together and talk. That's why we are organizing this forum online. For this forum to be organized online, thanks to the COVID-19 special program for providing their support in English and Spanish, and also for providing the technical support on Zoom. We would like to thank the Civil Düşün program because they made this forum possible. And actually, despite the pandemic, we were still hopeful. We were still planning to organize this event in Fındıklı on a face-to-face basis. However, starting from the recent weeks, the situation got even worse and worse, and it was a last-minute decision to carry this forum over to the online platform. Although we have postponed our action program for after the pandemic. For now, we wanted to get together and talk about the main themes, main headings for the process ahead of us, the aspects that makes us similar or different, so we wanted to create them collectively. That's why here we have friends from Fındıklı, we have our lawyer colleagues from Trabzon Bar Association, from Georgia and Armenia, we have our friends, and also from the World Women's March from the International Committee, Mariana Fernandez is with us today. And from very far away. They've just woken up actually from Brazil. Miriam Nombre is with us from the International Women's March, and she was the international coordinator. We worked together for many years, and she's been involved in the creation of this movement since the very beginning. And right now it's 10 a.m. in Brazil, and she's participating from Brazil. And I'd like to say good morning to our friends who are participating from a morning time zone. And Mary, I've seen that she also participated, Mary Jimenez from Guatemala. And right now it's 7 a.m. in the morning there. She woke up bright and early, and Mirana Abrahamnian and Mayranush, they're also here. Our friends from Armenia, Sofo from Georgia, and Suat Mahmoud from Tunisia. They did not leave us alone here, and we'd like to thank them all for being with us today. And we would like to start our program by leaving the floor to our friends from Fındıklı Women's Council. Gönül, I think you are connecting using Tubas. Yes, I think that's you, Tuba. So now, okay, your microphone is on right now. You can now speak. First of all, I'd like to say hello to everyone. I am from Rize, Fındıklı district from Eastern Black Sea, and I am here to say hello to you from the Women's Council. I will tell you what Meci is, what the culture is, how the Meci was organized in the past, and how we do it right now. Meci means imece in Turkish, which means providing help without anything in return, collective work. And then this then turned into a help that is given in return for something. In the past, nothing would be done without Meci, meaning collective work. So first, they would help new mothers. New mothers would not go outside their homes for 40 days, and all the work, all the domestic work that was needed by that woman would be provided by all the other women. They would take care of the work on the field, for example. That's how it started. And they would also take care of all the work necessary for ill women, because at the time they were only engaged in livestock and agricultural activities. They were not producing tea yet. And at the time, men would go down to up to the mountains to deal with the livestock, and all the agricultural work would be left to the women, and the women would only be able to take care of their fields by collective work. And at the time, tea production was not yet being done. So they would plant maize and wheat and all the other different products, and black cabbage as well, which is famous for Black Sea. And most important one is hazelnut, and it was very famous at the time, and it's about to go extinct right now. So everything was being done with Meci, collective work, and they would gather the hazelnuts together and no machines, and they wouldn't be able to buy any labor force because they didn't have money. So because they didn't have any money, what would they do? They would just help each other and survive together. Hazelnut midges were very nice, and we couldn't see it, unfortunately. They would pick up the hazelnuts together, sort them together, and they would sing songs. Young girls and young boys would meet each other there, and then they would get married. Women would come together and prepare wedding food to everyone. They would take care of funerals together, and they would also do the funeral dinner together. So whatever is needed to survive, to continue their lives, they would come together and do it through Meci culture, collective work. And the men, when they were coming down from the highlands, and in our geographical conditions, we have mountains and forests that are very far away, and there men would prepare wood, and most importantly, they would prepare handles for the garden tools, and they would only be able to sell it by going down to the city. And after selling all the handles that they made for the garden tools, they would then take them to the city and sell them. Apart from that, they would also use timber and wood to make houses, either to build their homes from the scratch or to repair someone's house who is in need, to maybe repair the roof, etc. They would do it together, all men. And again, they would maybe travel 4 hours or 5 hours to go to a forest, and they would bring down the wood through the stream. And everything starts changing with the start of tea planting. And after planting tea and growing tea, machinery was introduced. And when machinery was introduced, people naturally start being more distant to each other. They stop providing help to each other, and they also start buying labor force as well. People start hiring workers, so they also start buying labor. So when that is the case, Meci is completely diminished. And most recently, we have completely forgotten about Meci. There was nothing from the Meci culture that was left. And in the most recent municipal elections, actually, we changed lives once again through the Meci culture. We've done Meci once again as the people coming from that tradition. We changed the overall administration. Our mayor, Ercüment Şahin Şerbatoğlu, I'd like to once again thank him over and over once again, because he brought us together. He once again led us to use our old traditions and habits. We once again started engaging in our major culture. We made our fındıklı beautiful, and we ensured, our mayor ensured, that the people would take place in the overall municipal administration. And then we, hand in hand, we first looked at our needs. What can we do in Fındıklı? First, we started by cleaning. We cleaned the whole Fındıklı together. We worked together for building animal shelters, in several things actually, whatever is needed to be done. For example, for access products, we started a campaign for on-hold products so they would be distributed to the people in need, and we provided aid to regions of natural disasters, and we provided a rehabilitation center for stray animals. Again, we rehabilitated parks through Meci, and we even built toilets, city toilets through Meci. So we also organized training Mecis, various workshops for arts and culture. We gathered tea. We picked tea through Meiji. We provided scholarships. Women collected glass bottles. We sold them, and then we bought food for stray animals. So we carried out various activities. And most recently, the pandemic, just as was the case for everyone, our mobility was restricted. We were not able to get together uh, as frequently as before, but by social distancing, by using masks, it was apparent that we had to continue our lives in this manner. First of all, we sew masks together, and then we distributed masks. We to every home, and we distributed masks. And then during the pandemic period, I mean, it was not, we did not have Meiji councils of 30 people, but we continued our Meiji activities with smaller groups, not 30 people, but 10 people. So that's all. This is how we are working right now.
Gönül ayrıca belki bu süreçte
Gönül, maybe you can also talk and speak about your experiences as a woman living in Fındıklı. Maybe with a couple of sentences you can talk about your experiences, because as far as I know from our previous conversations, you have experiences. So before we proceed to the presenter, we can hear from your experiences, because we have women among our participants who are outside Fındıklı, who are even outside Turkey. So maybe you can introduce yourself a bit to us.
Gönül.
Gönül, I think we experienced some kind of a sound problem. Gönül, you still have some time, so you haven't used all your speech time. Maybe I could leave the floor to other colleagues, other friends, and okay, then we can come back to you whenever there's a need. Thank you.
Pardon. Simge Atay konumunda
Simge
Berri.
Atay is, I think, representing our Young Fındıklı Youth Council. So as a woman from Fındıklı, I can say that I wish the culture of collective work, Meci, is spread throughout the world. That is what we wish. We want a society that is free of gender, and this is what I can say. And much success to everyone.
Şimdi Fındıklı Gençlik Meclisi'nin
Now we have Fındıklı Youth Council who are going to talk about their activities in Fındıklı and the community garden in Fındıklı and their activities during the pandemic. So Berin is going to take the floor and she will talk about young women in Fındıklı because she's one of them. Okay, so you have the floor.
Merhabalar herkese. Ben
Hello
Fındıklı'dan
everyone, I am Berin from Fındıklı. I'm here on behalf of the Youth Council and I will talk about the activities we're carrying out.
öncelikle pandemi sürecinde olsun.
First of all, during the pandemic, we came together under the leadership of brothers and together with the elections, we all came together as the youth of Fındıklı. This process started working together in order to enhance the Meci culture, the collective work culture. We took action.
Seçimden sonra gençlik
After the elections, youth councils were set up. We wanted to, of course, express ourselves better and to do more work. We established our youth councils. We assembled together, we had meetings, young people came together, we socialized, we all talked about what we wanted and what we should do. We discussed these in these meetings. The first activity was the 19th of May, Youth and Sports Celebration Day, and we talked about what we could do, and on the 19th of May we came together and we marched with torches and then we organized a concert on that night. In this event, young people existed everywhere. They helped us, they assisted each other.
daha sonrasında
And then
sokaklarımızı nasıl güzelleştirebiliriz?
we thought about how we could make our streets more beautiful, and we wanted to paint our streets. We wanted to have colorful streets.
Sokaklar yaptık. Sanat
Our streets are full of color now, and as artistic activities, we thought as the youth council what we could do, and after that in Fındıklı we organized a theater activity, and we also were present at every stage of a theater, and we had a 4-day festival, and after we organized this festival of green, gold, and silver sea festival. It lasted for 4 days. During the day, we had different culture and arts events, and in the evening, we organized concerts.
çocuk etkinlikleri olsun.
We had children's events, marches,
Etkinlikleri olsun.
theater and arts events, and in the evenings, we organized concerts.
Konserler düzenledik.
So we arranged for the evenings.
Yıllar sonra bu etkinlik
Years later, it was the first time that such an activity was organized. It lasted for 4 days.
sonrasında kadın cinayeti
And then for femicides in Turkey and for women, violence against women, we marched on the streets and we wanted to raise awareness. We think, take action and raise awareness about femicide and violence against women.
bunları yaparken Kadın Meclisi ve Gençlik Meclisi
And when we were doing this, we worked with the Women's Council. So the Youth Council and Women's Council worked together. The 1st of September, World Peace Day. Here in Fındıklı, we had horon dance, which is a traditional dance for us. we came together for this horon dance.
Ay sana Yassi! Yassi, Yassi! Ay sana Yassi! Yassi, Yassi! Ay dağlar! Dağlar, dağlar!
Bir Mayıs, 1 Eylül
1st of September, World Peace Day. So on this day, together with our horon dance, we commemorated and celebrated that day. As the Youth Council, our elderly people living in the care homes, and we went there to visit them in the care home. And we spent a day with our elderly community and we listened to their problems. And for that day, we helped them, tried to assist them. In Elazığ, there was an earthquake. And in this earthquake, we from different provinces we wanted to be there together with them in this after this earthquake. We collected some aid and we wanted to bring this aid to them.
yardımı topladık ve Fındıklı'dan
After we collected this help, this aid, we departed from Fındıklı with a lorry and we went there with this truck. We wanted to go there, be there with those people. We wanted to touch their lives and we distributed the help that we collected in Fındıklı. After a long interval, once again, we went on the street to listen to the problems of our tradesmen and we asked how they were doing. We asked if they had any needs, they had any problems. We asked about how pleased they were.
Mart Dünya Kadın Günü'nde
8th of March, World Women's Day, we wanted to make a difference and only men worked that day. Women were out that day. We were out on demonstration and men worked and women demonstrated that day. We took action and women did not work, but our men worked that day, including Brother Ercüment. Everyone, all of our women were there out on the streets that day. After 11th of March, with the start of the pandemic period, our elderly could, of course, there was a restriction for people over the age of 65 to go outside and they were banned. So we asked what we could do, and as the Youth Council, we had a help desk called 153, and from this hotline 153, when elderly people called us, they used to tell us what they needed, and us as the young people, we were trying to take these needs to them. We try to help them and support them in this period by taking whatever their requirements were to them. Thank you to Fındıklı Municipality and our young. And of course, during the pandemic period, we did not want to forget about the stray animals. So through the day, we continued to provide feed to stray animals, uh, dog foods or other stray animal foods. We wanted to distribute these to them. 23rd of April, National Sovereignty and Children's Day. We celebrated this day. Of course, they could not go out pandemic. And for this, we worked for 2 days and we created a band. And we visited entire streets of Fındıklı, and this band played music on the streets. So we tried to reach our children through this, and we received great reactions from all children.
Maviliklere süreceğiz, güzel günler göreceğiz, güneşli günler. Çocuklar inanın, inanın çocuk, güzel günler göreceğiz, güneşli günler. Motorları maviliklere süreceğiz, güzel günler göreceğiz, güneşli günler. Lay la la lay la la la la la la. Lay la la lay lay la lay la lay la lay. Lay la la lay lay la lay la lay la lay. Lay la la lay lay la lay la lay la lay. Hepinizin Ulusal Egemenlik ve Çocuk Bayramı kutlu olsun.
Daha sonrasında 1 Mayıs
And after that, we had 1st of May, and we prepared a video for the 1st of May as the Youth Council.
İşçilerin emeğinin karşılığını aldığı, çalışma koşullarının iyileştiği, çiftçinin zarara uğramadığı, çayda kota ve kontenjanın kaldırıldığı, değerlerimizin özgür aktığı, doğamızın talan edilmediği,
kadınların öldürülmediği, tacize, tecavüze, şiddete uğramadığı, çocuklar istismar edilmediği, parasız eğitimi, parasız sağlığın olduğu, savaş olduğu, eğitim sisteminin hurafelerle değil bilimle şekillendiği, sanatın sansüre uğramadığı, herkesin eşit, özgür ve insanca yaşadığı, gündüzlerinde sömürülmeyen,
gecelerinde aç yatılmayan, bir ülke ve dünya için mücadeleye.
Viva 1st of May!
akşamın
And for the evening, by, of course, respecting the social distancing rules, we sang folk songs.
Ancak bu böyle gitmez, sömürü devam etmez. Ancak bu böyle gitmez, sömürü devam etmez. Yepyeni bir hayat gelir, bizde ve her yerde. Yepyeni bir hayat gelir, bizde ve her yerde.
6 Mayıs'ta ise Deniz Gezmiş.
On the 6th of May, we commemorated Deniz Gezmiş, Yusuf Aslan, and Hüseyin İnan.
Onları anmak için
And to commemorate them,
çiçek astık.
we threw flowers to the river,
Ardından
and then
Hayati Aykut
we
Parkı'na
visited
gittik.
our youth park.
Orada
And
fiilen Deniz
there, on this park, to commemorate Deniz Yusuf, we these seedlings
Ziraat Odası ile birlikte
in their name.
geçmişten gelen
And with the Chamber of Agriculture,
kaybetmemek adına
we wanted to, of course, preserve our historic seeds. So we planted them, we prepared them as seedlings, and we distributed these seedlings that we prepared to the people of Fındıklı to ensure their sustainability. And as the youth center, we were also there in the plantation of these seedlings. On Mother's Day, we, because also it was the pandemic period, we wanted to make women happy side. So we visited door to door. We distributed flowers. We tried to bring these flowers to them as much as we could.
Ee, 65 yaş üstü ve evden çıkamayan yine pandemi
For
döneminde
our people over the age of 65 and for outside due to the pandemic requested seedlings, and since they couldn't come and get the seedlings, we wanted to bring these to them. Whoever wanted, as the youth council, we brought these seedlings to them, these saplings and seedlings to them.
ve Gençlik Tarım Parkı.
And we have the Youth Agriculture Park.
Bağışladığı bir arazi.
This is a land granted by one citizen, and as the young people of Fındıklı, we took over cultivation on this land, and we bought the seedlings. We brought the seedlings that we prepared with the Chamber of Agriculture, and we planted them on this youth park as the youth council. And we wanted to have the streets become more beautiful in Fındıklı, and we had a street that was not used much and it was in very bad condition, and we thought about what we could do about that street. So we painted the walls, and we brought a different light to the street, and we brought tables, and we wanted to beautify. In Yusufeli district, there was a flood disaster,
Yardım topladık.
and again we collected help and we sent help to this district.
Bu süreçte her zaman yanımızda olan bir
And in this period,
omuzdaşımız, yoldaşımız.
unfortunately, we lost a friend, a dear friend, a comrade who was always with us. We believe, and we will continue with him.
Onun gücüyle, onun
With his strength, with his power,
hissederek büyüyeceğiz.
we will continue to grow.
Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you.
Yan tarafta Hande Burma yorumlarda
On the side, Hande Burma said on the chat that he wanted to add that there was a VJ festival they organized last year. I was there and I had great fun. And Devrim Çağdaş, Edifen Gökman, greetings to them.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz Berrin bu güzel
Thank you very much. Very nice speech. Berrin Molla Ibrahim Ağoğlu from the Youth Council shared speech and experiences with us. Maybe you may have noticed we're all very excited, and I think this excitement is reflected on the screen. This was very important for us because under the conditions of this pandemic, we had this image culture, this collective assistance culture that we had inherited. We wanted to revive it, and as a solution, in cases where the government and the authorities were doing nothing and leaving the people to their destinies, under these conditions, the fact that social collective assistance was revived was very important, and we wanted to underline this. And in this way, we wanted to also show that this was an alternative suggestion of women feminists, and we thought that this would inspire others. So Youth Council and Women's Council experiences are very new, and we'd like to share thank friends for sharing their experiences with us. And in the remainder of our broadcast, if they want to complete their thoughts or add others, we will also leave them the floor once again. As the World March of Women, this year is the 20th anniversary right now, and we have collected 20 years of experience of international movement. So to reflect their experience and to shed their light to us based on their local experience, we invited our other sisters from other countries, Miriam Nobre, in the area of feminist economy and food dominance. She's been working for many years. She's a feminist activist from Brazil and was the international coordinator for the World March of Women for and she has experience with working with women at the grassroots level. Before leaving the floor to Miriam, we have a short surprise for her. We will show a video of 6 minutes, and this would maybe once again remind us and refresh our memories. There was a 10-day march before in the World March of Women, and maybe we can be inspired by the music and the images from there, and maybe that would also calm our excitement a little bit.
E desmilitarização. A violência tem destruído sonhos do coração. Chega de guerras, estas armas têm que cair ao chão. Estas armas têm que cair ao chão. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Não há violência contra as mulheres. Chega de calar. Quero autonomia, o direito a trabalhar. Quero autonomia, o direito a trabalhar. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas. Pão, água, terra, educação e saúde. o direito de viver com bens comuns e serviços públicos se ter, e serviços públicos se ter. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Seguiremos em marcha até que iremos em marcha até que todas sejamos livres. Paz e depressão. Essa violência tem destruído os sonhos do coração. Chega de guerras, estas armas têm que cair ao chão. Estas armas têm que cair ao chão. Seguiremos em marcha forte até que todas sejamos livres.
Öncelikle teşekkür etmek istiyoruz.
First of all, we would like to thank Miriam Nobre for sparing her time and being with us today. Miriam, you now have the floor, but right now on live broadcast, we can only hear original sounds and interpretation will not be available. However, we are recording this forum both in Turkish and English, and we will share these later on. The Turkish and English recordings of the speeches, we will be sharing them on our YouTube channel and our social media account. You now have the floor, Miriam. Thank you. I will be speaking Spanish. Once again, thank you very much. Being with you and sharing these moments with you, and I'd like to thank for the interpretation as well, and we can communicate in this way. And for remembering this beautiful moment from 2012. Thank you very much as well. I also remembered being with you. I remembered being with women from Turkey, and we also went to the EU March in 2010. As you would remember, we were there a couple of days ago, and with Inez, we went there and made some preparations. And the uh, phone ringtone was Mission Impossible. It kept ringing because everyone was calling her for the preparations, and always her phone kept ringing, and I could not believe. And we, after seeing this European experience with you, we saw that nothing is impossible for the women in this region. I will share three things with you. First of all, I will talk about three main elements of feminist economy and how do these principles become more concrete when it comes to food. And I will also talk about food dominancy. First of all, I would like to share with you feminist economy, eco-dependency, and interdependency. And of course, these are all relating to human life, and there are two dependencies that humans cannot stop needing, nature and also the sensitivity and the need for the assistance of other people in the society. So we are dependent on the nature, and we are also dependent on each other. We are also part of the nature. Food, accommodation, water, and the nature itself, they are all process, and all of these processes are then transformed into raw materials, and these are transformations. And apart from that, in our lives, in some parts of our life cycle, when we are born or when we are baby or when we get older, when we get sick, emotionally and physically, we are dependent on the times of other people. And usually, people who care for others are usually women, the carers. Regarding provision of care, there is an unequal balance. Women are more engaged in caring for others. Indigenous women, Black women provide more care as opposed to others. And in nature, these limits are not that definite, and these take more time of women. And in feminist economy, how we can establish this borders, how we can continue caring. And for that, we have a dual action. both the time that women allocate for caring and also for other activities, economic activities, the time when women are forgotten, and also to talk about men in that regard, that's important. So our political activities should also be based on that. So how do we link this with food? And food is very understand this in a better way, because we need to, in a clearer manner, how our materials and cultural materiality are interconnected. So materially, we have certain needs to survive because we are what we eat. That is why we need to change our relationship on what we eat, considering capitalist strategy as well. We need to pay attention to this as well. And our friend who was talking about tea production, we need to pay attention to planting and also industrializing as well. In Sao Paulo, the indigenous people are Guanis, and they are, when we are consuming these soulless food that has been overly processed, and the food that is created by multinational companies, we are also losing our souls, and the world uh, is now being perceived in a more homogenized manner. We are all eating the same thing, and people are then being squeezed borders, same limits, and same uh, templates. So how can we structure our lives? I like the word Meci very much. And for us, Meci means muchurao in Portuguese. And that means the collective work to prepare the soil, the collective work for planting, and then agricultural activities. And for agroecology, we are working relating to all the food cycle about seed, for example. Yes, I agree with my friend there. Yes, we need to keep the seeds alive and maintaining the plant varieties and to increase their exchange. That will be the way to do it. And we cannot do it by preserving them, by keeping them in seed banks or in closed structures. Let's collectively plant them together, and after we eat them, the parts where we do not eat as food or consume as food, we need to be able to use them as uh, fertilizer, and then we need to put it back to the soil, compost. And our colleagues from Venezuela explained to us what they are doing, and sometimes we can even do it in our homes, in our family. And composting, it was also done by us in public areas as well. And this increases our need and wish to consume more natural food, because that is also going to feed compost, and in turn we will feed into the soil. This is an activity that can be done both at the rural level and at the urban level as well. And we can gain more areas and increase agriculture and agroecology. And apart from that, about providing care, we need to take the gender of caring in the preparation of food. As women, we work a lot, and that we need to increase our activities for this very human need. I talk about this because usually women who are living in the city are being invited, and then we tell them to buy more natural food and start buying it collectively. But how will they organize their time in their lives, and how they're going to organize this responsibility? We do not think about this. Women, when they are on their own and when they try to find a solution for their family, they usually prefer industrialized food and they want to save time. And so how are we going to overcome this solution? By not providing any more time burden on women. And one of the methods to do it is to do it collectively. In Latin America, our friends in Peru, we learned a lot from them. From collective food halls, we learned a lot. We learned both by what from what they did right and their mistakes as well. Preparing the food together, for example, plant eating it together. They have collective food halls, and all of them are actually just collected experience, and we now are faced with them as possible solutions in the pandemic period. As we know that one of the reasons of pandemic is about how capitalism exploited culture and nature, actually, because one of the hypotheses is that this virus was actually came from wild animals who do no longer have any more space for their wild habitat because they are breeded in a very wrong manner. This was a problem that was caused by that, and this is how the virus now reached out to humans. That is one of the hypotheses, and one of the causes of the spread of this virus, and this is what happened in Brazil and in other places, and also it was seen in the United States as well, that this virus became very much concentrated in nursing homes because many women was working in several homes, and they are doing it to survive, and they're caring for the elderly. And of course that is an example of how capitalism is exploiting nature and time and had an impact on this pandemic. So how do we get out of this pandemic? While doing that, we will need to reorganize the economy in a very different way. Talking about this example, at least in where I am living, in urban areas, people are working and trying to have access to better quality food every day, and they are trying to distribute this to poor people. I am also working with farmer women of African origin, and we are trying to bring their products to the city and bring it people who are working. And here, of course, we're not trying to reach the organic food niche. We don't want only the people who earn well to eat well. We want working people to also eat well. And we also want them to remember what they ate when they were children. So the people in the city, when they're deciding what to eat, we don't want to decide what the farmers were produced. Let the farmers produce a variety of food items, and then they will produce them, and then they can sell them to the city, and then we will decide what to eat. So we would like to correct the power balance between the rural and the urbans. So after the start of the pandemic, the volume of the food that we brought over increased and the main thing here is that people there eat well, and actually they are not only ensuring the food consumption of their core families, but also they can also prepare the food for other extended families and other households in the city as well. So this food that's commercialized in a different way. And these distribution systems, we also facilitate, meaning we do not distort the power balance between the people who produce the food and the people who buy the food. So people are ensuring that people need can have access to this food. I mean, every family should not all get one basket of food based on their need. They should get half a basket or 1.5 baskets, and this distribution. I haven't checked the time. I don't know how much time I have, but I think I need to talk about the connection of what I've been talking about with food sovereignty. So in summary, in order to ensure that people eat well in line with their own for them to be able to eat in that way and not only look at the calorie deficit, or not only, do I have only 5 minutes? Okay, do I have to finish? Okay. Anyway, I will speak very shortly about food sovereignty. No, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes you have.
Okay, great. I have 10 minutes. Then I can speak slower. Meaning allowing people, letting people eat in line with their culture, having variety for that, having food variety, and organizing this in the right manner and in without being exposed to government in a with a very wide perspective, in a multifaceted way. They need to be organized, and this is important for us. And here, by considering all of these, we suggested the principle of food sovereignty. There are two important principles. One is the negotiations here, especially with the WTO. The negotiations with the WTO are very important for us. And food, the agricultural organization in the countries is dependent on not uh, the local scale, but also based on the trade agreements as well. Let me just give an example. In Brazil, for example, at the rate of 60% in agriculture, maize is being used and soybeans are planted. And in the meantime, I'm talking about maize, and Guatemala is going to be talking about this as well. This is These are soybeans that are sold and exported, and then they are also traded. But we consume more rice, for example, and for 6 years, for the last 6 years, the rice production here decreased significantly, and now we started receiving these products from overseas. And the government, especially the right-wing government, what did they do? In Portuguese, we call it stock. The stocks of rice production decreased significantly, and the rice that's been actually stocked is under the management of the government. Actually, if there's a problem, the government intervenes, and the amount of that rice stock is controlled by the government. So they were kept outside the market, and the prices were very much different. For example, during the pandemic, let me give an example here. People can receive a certain amount of monetary assistance, but here at the same time, the price of the food items also increased. And here, of course, there is a certain monetary cycle, and they are keeping the monetary cycle going, and the prices go up as well. But when we talk about food sovereignty, it has a completely reversed cycle. We're talking about food in one country. Let's say that rice is consumed a lot. The state, the government should make sure that the rice that is consumed in that country is produced at the same amount, and that should be guaranteed. And of course, through trade agreements, these needs should be covered as well. And another very important thing for us is that, especially in emergencies or when there's a deficit, in covering the government should also make sure that the areas where there's agricultural production is managed well. For example, there could be some products that are imported from the north. So we are living in a somewhat a food passage, because in the past, we were eating different things. For example, in the morning, we had different wheat. But for example, if too much wheat is given to the country, then we start eating wheat rather than maize. So we need we are trying to get used to a different kind of an agricultural product, different kind of a production. So in this way, agriculture should not be considered like business. So food sovereignty requires this. I think it was in 2006 we came to movements. So we thought, how can we strengthen the sovereignty? We listened to different experiences. We had an exchange of ideas, and as the World March of Women, we have tried to contribute to this food sovereignty, and the organizations under Via Campesine, we supported them, and we also brought together women under different movements. And what have we learned about this? First of all, access to the field, access to the soil, water, seeds is very important, because women know agricultural production very well. If there had been no women, then we would have completely lost different varieties of many products, because they are the products that are planted by women in their terraces, in their home gardens. These plants are planted, and by planting them and then keeping the seeds, they are consuming them in the family, and they are also guaranteeing the variety of these food items. So we need to disseminate these experiences. And the second thing is that women uh, do not contribute only with their direct contributions, but from planting wheat to making bread and cooking, contribute to the whole process, which is also very important for us in food production, both in the cities and in rural areas. Women have a very high workload, especially during the pandemic. Women have been working in very different areas, especially caring is a work area that belongs to women. through phone, through people they manage, they also do that. And emotionally, they are working as dependent on many people, and they're working in very bad conditions. So we need to recognize all the work that is undertaken by women, and we need to reduce this workload. And we need to analyze all of these very well and understand them very well. We, as the World March of Women, we tried to do the following. So we said that in terms of home, work, and caring, unless we improve these conditions for women, we thought that we cannot ensure food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is about policy, it's about institutions, it's about states, municipalities. However, we also can create this ourselves by experiencing it. We can also create it and understand it ourselves. And by looking from a feminist perspective, we can create them again by organizing. Like Meci, we can collectively do this together. The wider we ensure that these areas are, we can gain more experience and learn about alternative practices, alternative perspectives, and we can organize in a better way. These experiences are very important for us in order to understand the field distribution and being able to do this field distribution in a different way and time distribution once again in terms of work, we need to rethink it once again. We need to go back to the nature, and to do that we will think together and we will share our experiences together. When I was listening to Meci, we call it muturao in Portuguese, by the way. Just like Meci, we also work collectively, and I hope in the future we will sing very nice songs together, and we will dance again together, and we will be together just like Meci. Thank you very much.
Miriam, thank you very much because this was a very important contribution from your side. So now let's use time in the best manner. So let's leave the floor to our other speaker from Guatemala. Again, in this framework, she's going to present her presentation. In Guatemala, she is responsible for women's sector in the World March of Women. She's a great part of World March of Women. And we had the opportunity to listen to her presentation in the last weeks. And it's the first time I'm listening to Miriam from a Turkish interpretation. So this is a great development for us. And now we're going to hear from Guatemalan experience of women and their relationship between the soil, the women, and their body. So I'll leave the floor to Jimenez.
Muy buenos días, muchas gracias. Es un gusto para mí poder.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's good to see these different attitudes, these different experiences. To be able to understand these is very important for me. So what do we do? In the scope of World March of Women in Guatemala, let me talk about this. We have two different areas. Both property and land. What do we do about these, and what type of a sovereignty are we trying to build? Let me talk about this. In October, we implement an event, and what we first do is that every day in Guatemala, we carry out our work, and our daily work in Guatemala led us to think that what do women do? What type of realities are we facing as women? We wanted to think of these. We wanted to understand these. We wanted to perceive the women's place in the society, their conditions in the society, what they have, their assets in society. We wanted to understand these. We wanted to understand certain indicators, and we want certain concepts such as poverty. I'm not only talking about monetary wise poverty, I'm also talking about poverty in terms of thought, because in our areas, in our places, we cannot see the real situation of women sometimes. So this is not normal, of course. And we understood this, and these are actually realities that are exerted upon us. And we need to, first of all, that is what we decided: poverty, lack of food, malnutrition, maternal death rates, birth deaths, and birth mortalities, and violence against women, domestic exploitation of women. We needed to think of all of these, and we said all of these have a root cause. And of course, there are certain, and historically, we are all coming from a male dominant society, and this male dominance have had an impact on our thoughts and on our actions. And these all, of course, come from, we might not always see from a cosmovision. We cannot have a broad vision, but we need to have a wider perspective in order to see all these connections, and we need to organize. We need a cosmovision that is going to set us free and uh, make us independent. Therefore, us, we need to understand the humanity and the nature better. And all of this center, we need to be able to understand the balance. This is important both for the humanity and for the nature. We should consider the balance between the humanity and the nature through a cosmovision. We can see this balance through a cosmovision. We can use these thoughts for life, and we could use these thoughts, we can protect them, and by protecting these doctrines, by considering these doctrines, we can also protect these practices, all dependent on our practices and actions, of course. For example, keeping, storing these original seeds, maintaining them, and maintaining the life cycle depends on this. This is important for the economy, for our bodies, for a healthy body. This balance needs to be ensured, because we are the ones who need to protect our own bodies. We need to take good care of ourselves so that we could sustain this life cycle. And we need to listen to our voice first. We should be the ones who needs to hear us. And in this social distancing period, we use different methods. We were able to use different platforms, and we continued our life. And we said that we will never allow our voice to be suppressed. This was a very important moment for us, a learning moment. This was a learning moment for us. And in the meantime, I am a woman who is a native. I am from a native community, and we do not always have the opportunity to get the best education in the best schools sometimes. And in this period, I had the opportunity to learn technology. Social distancing gave me this opportunity to, we were able to come together over different platforms, and we were able to share our experiences. And within our lives, we try to think about how we can have access to healthy food. And in this way, we try to ensure food sovereignty for nutrition, for production. Of course, seed is important for us. It is important for the ecology. Organic production is for us. Compost making, fertilizer making, these are all important for us. And of course, using the seeds, planting, cultivating, to sustain all of these, to be able to use the final product, these are all considered as a cycle. And all of this cycle continued in social distancing period as well. But since 2006, we are continuing these processes. That is why we tried to support women, and we needed to protect our first priority, which is our body. So how are we going to combine our lives with Mother Nature? We shouldn't forget that we are all parts of the nature, and both our area, our body, which is our soil, and we need to protect our body, which is our soil, and food. We used a lot of plant-based medicines during this pandemic. Why? Because it all strengthens our immune system. And in this COVID-19 pandemic, what we observed was that how we could take care of ourselves within the family. We had this experience. And after we experienced all this, we now have a commitment to the rules of living. So what is sacred for me is that how to use these food products. So for women, this is very sacred. Maybe without COVID-19, we wouldn't be able to realize this, but thanks to these products, we learned that we are not harming the environment or ourselves. We are now discussing the use of plastics. And this was a product of the capitalist system, because the capitalist system is offering this to us. This is what capitalist system provides to us. And of course, in this period, we worked and we started to use what our grandfathers, our grandmothers were using. We remembered how our ancestors used to cook food, and we used this in order to not pollute the environment. And we came down to the memories of the publics and the people. We made use of their experiences and their know-how, and we handled these issues, these different issues. And Guatemala, in the scope, we worked on these topics in Guatemala, and for our own welfare, we use these. And that is why, let me share with you that we started to work, take action, and we worked to regain this positioning, especially for the protection and defense of the body, of our bodies, which is our own soil. And we wanted to protect the soil as well. And for that, to defend the land, we as women try to defend the land. For the last 14 years, we have been a front coming or a pioneer women's organization, and we are resisting against mining activities. And when we are having this resistance, we try to connect with different communities, and we try to explain impact of mining industry. There were different research studies made, and we explained these to communities, we carried out awareness raising activities, and we started this defense for life. And of course, for this, we need to protect the environment and the nature. But what is nature for us? What do we call is what we need to be able to understand. Protecting water, defending air, medicinal plants, seeds. It's very important to defend them and to protect them. Of course, it's important to protect traditional seeds. We should not accept GMO seeds because this would lead to losing our original seeds. Forests are very important. Multinational companies are now taking an eye to our forests. They want to have our forests because in our forests there are economic aspects that could be of use to them. There are mines in our forests. That is why we need to protect our trees and our forests, because when you protect the forest, you protect water. And when you protect water, you maintain your own food and your own life. And everything in the rule of life will be in this cycle, and we can maintain this cycle. The groups in our region are, of course, and in the scope of these working groups in our region, from 2008 to 2013, we overcame an important period. And in this period, what we achieved was that all discussions, awareness raising activities. Thanks to all these activities, we ensured a consultation process, a neighborhood consultation process. In 2013, we completed this neighborhood consultation, and very soon we are going to celebrate the anniversary of the neighborhood consultation. And 95% of Xinca village, which is in the eastern part of Guatemala, we said no. And in this region, there were 31 mining licenses that were awarded, and no one knew of these licenses. We did not know about the existence of these mining licenses. So we continued our actions under the leadership of women's organizations. The local women's action, Santa Maria Solata women's organizations, we are this women's organization, and our local organization defends the land. And in this short period of time, where I was able to share only some part of our work. But what we would like to say is that all these events bring us together and and they make us a defender of human rights, and they make us a defender of the standards of the environment. Another world is possible, but for this we need to join hands and we need to be able to march together. And we need to use this to march together. We need to join the efforts and continue to work together. We need to work in these areas because these are all opportunities for us. So this is all I could share with you. I don't know how am I doing about the time. I don't know if I have more time or should I finish. So this was a speech that I prepared to share with you. Thank you very much for wanting to hear from me, and I hope we will be able to listen to each other in another opportunity. Thank you very much.
Çok teşekkür ederiz Mary. Zaman ayırıp katıldın ve şu an orada sabahın erken bir
Thank you
saat.
very much, Mary, for allocating your time. And it's very early there. You wake up very early. And what you said was very right. And your experience also shed lights to us. You talked about using the memory of people, especially with the pandemic. The societies that we are living in turned into the societies of live or die. So as a savior solution, the methods that our grandparents use, remembering them once again is important. That's why we use Meci as a collective work, collective assistance, and also using this not only in terms of assistance in a district, but also helping each other among peoples, helping each other, guiding each other, shouldering each other's burden. So we also thought that it would also contain that as well. So the experience of indigenous people in Americas, you've been working on it for a long time. You have certain messages that you've driven from there, and they are very much guiding your activities. And also in Turkey, in the geography that we're living in, there are also very many native people, and our friends will be talking about the Laz culture, one of the native people of Anatolia. And their relationship with the nature is very much exemplary. They have a relationship with the nature, and we wanted to organize this to, first of all, highlight the Meci culture and to also remember the knowledge that was passed on from one generation to the other by the native people in Anatolia, and we wanted to transform this into an important part of their survival culture. We have a 10-minute break in our program for maybe a toilet break, for food, water, other things. We have a 10-minute break now.
Toplan.
Raga ne biçim var mı koca ne biçim var mı leskanikala var mı leskanikala ubaz bu mologizun ubaz bu mologizun muchos uvaştan çala muchos uvaştan çala tedale be habrenan tedale be habrenan şvaheşo var barbala şvaheşo var barbala maşkurina var mivun maşkurina var mivun meto çivincukala meto çivincukala fırtına şence bulur fırtına şence bulur ne namım çime bulur ne namım çime bulur ne namım çime bulur
Evet, hadi teşekkür ederim. Yanaşalım biraz daha şu topları. Evet, gir. Gözünüz Yasemin'de. Gözünüz Yasemin'de. Yasemin sen de. Evet. Yasemin'e bakıyoruz. Başkan geliyor.
Ben Ceren Damar. 1 Ocak 2019 tarihinde Hasan İsmail Hikmet tarafından önce bıçaklanarak daha sonrasında silahla vurularak öldürüldüm. Hepinize kızgınım.
Ben Emine Bulut. 18 Ağustos 2019 tarihinde eski eşim Fedai Varan tarafından kızımın gözleri önünde bıçaklanarak öldürüldüm. Hepinize kızgınım.
Ben Hatice Kurt. 27 Mart 2020'de eski eşim Ali Rıza Havuz tarafından sokak ortasında hepinizin gözleri önünde vurularak öldürüldüm. Hepinize ama hepinize kızgınım.
Ben Gamze Pala. 15 Nisan 2020 tarihinde Savaş Dalan Çıkar tarafından silahla vurulamayınca bıçaklanarak öldürüldüm. Adımı daha önce duymuş muydunuz? Duyanlarınız vardır elbet. Artık beni hepiniz tanıyorsunuz. Sizlerle çok başka şekillerde, başka yerlerde tanışabilirdik aslında. Ama bu şekilde değil. Ağlıyorsunuz değil mi hepiniz? Ama artık ben ağlamıyorum. Ben çok güçlüydüm aslında. Kendi ekmeğimi kazanırken, anneme bakarken, sokakta yürürken, arkadaşlarımla gülerken, hatta ölürken bile çok güçlüydüm. Ama sustum. Dün gece birileri uyurken, birileri eşinden şiddet görürken, birileri gece vardiyasında çalışırken, birileri kahve içerken ben sustum. Sanmayın suskunluğum her şeyin sonu demek. Hayır, asıl şimdi konuşacağım ben özgürce. Şiddet olmayan yerlerde konuşacağım. Annelerin vicdanlı evlat yetiştirdiği evlerde konuşacağım. Kadınların öldürülmediği sokaklarda konuşacağım. Ben kadının yaşadığı dünyada hep konuşacağım.
Evet,
Başlayabiliriz.
evet, ikinci kısma başlatabiliriz.
Yes, we can now start the second part. Violence against women turned into a second wealth at the universal level, and not only in Fındıklı and Turkey, it is a rising kind of a violence against women. So attacks against the nature is also one of the must-have themes that we have, because women's World March of Women has been working on food, soil, the body, and the fight against violence against women. We always fought against them together because we believe that these are occurring together, and the fight against the two of them will also go hand in hand. So in the person of Gamze Pala, we wanted to commemorate all women who had been victims of femicides. And our dear friend Sevil Fertinger, who will be speaking right now, is a colleague who put in a lot of efforts in ensuring that this forum would happen. This morning, her mother died, and that's why she could not participate in this forum. We wholeheartedly share her pain. And while we are on this topic, we have our lawyer friends from Trabzon Bar Association. In a recent period, especially in the attacks against Istanbul, against the acquired rights of the women, against the rights of women, both in international conventions and nationally. We have our friends who have put in a lot of efforts. Avukat Gülcan, lawyer Gülcan Kara, lawyer Yağmur Kahraman, and lawyer Hande Burma. They are with us today, so we would like to thank them. I'd like to leave the floor to our lawyer friends.
Evet.
Mikrofonlarını arkadaşlarımızın açmamız gerekecek ama şu
We will need to unmute our friends' microphones. We have 46 people in our Zoom meeting. Yes, Yağmur Kahraman.
Siz konuşurken o slaytı yandan paylaşır
While you
mısınız?
are speaking, should we share the slides? Can you hear me right now? Yes. Everyone. I am one of the lawyers of Trabzon Bar Association. I'm Gülcan Kara. As you've also just mentioned, most recently, in the recent years, both in Turkey and around the world, there's been an increase in the violence against women, or there's a situation where it is becoming more and more visible. Or let me just explain as follows. The time is limited, so I will try to summarize. Both Europe and the world had a need for this convention that would prevent violence, that would be binding upon the contracting parties, and even though there wouldn't be a lot of sanctions, it would be still binding and guiding for the contracting parties. That is why Council of Europe, for which Turkey is a founding member, established an organ on how to prevent and how to work against this and fight against it. And that organ started carrying out certain activities. And at the time, there was one uh, compensation judgment of the European Court of Human Rights against Turkey, NIDOP's judgment. And after this judgment, the European Court of Human Rights ruled against Turkey, and it was actually a first in the history of the European Court of Human Rights. And Turkey, in order to its lowering prestige in the international arena, Turkey actually was a leading party in these activities for the preparation of this convention. So there were some preparatory activities in Turkey, there were speeches in the parliament, there were some discussions with all the NGOs in Turkey. So it was a widely thought on, widely elaborated convention. So discussions on whether the convention is a national one or a local one or not, but that those discussions are actually moot because it was a locally discussed convention as well. So what happened to this convention? Why is this convention on the agenda today? But actually, the convention was not brought up to the agenda today. Since then, there were certain congregations, certain groups who were already working against this convention. They were carrying out anti-propagandas against this convention. And today, Article 103 of the Turkish Criminal Code, the alimony discussions, the child abuse discussions are still going on in our society. So there's a total perception. It's a part of a policy to change the overall perception. So why are these religious groups, these congregations are very important? We already saw in 15th of July the impact of these religious groups on Turkish politics. And actually, I really do not think that it is necessary to call them Muslim groups, because we also have some Muslim organizations, Muslim people who are working with us. I mean, can we say they are Muslim and the others aren't? But their perception is that they are not very much based on human rights. These are actually religious groups that have connections to Iran. So when there's this dimension of the issue, we also need to talk about the social dimension as well, the political side of things. So when this convention was brought to the agenda, actually are pushing women outside the society. And again, this is also very much relating to the debate in the society on Article 103 of the Turkish Criminal Code. You will devaluate women when they're still children. You will force them to get married, and then you will put them in the boundaries of home, and then men will be burdened with the role of being the father, the patriarch of the family, and the women will be given the role of taking care of children, staying at home. And then what's going to happen? You will have created a group of voters, electorate. Well, considering interpretation, could you speak slower? I know that you have limited time, but we have interpretation as well. Yes, we have limited time, so I was trying to move very quickly. Yes, I understand. Okay, where were we? Well, until more recently, about these religious groups, there's this thing. Turkey's structure is not like the structure of these religious groups. The Islamist understanding in Turkey is not like the ISIS structure, not an extremist kind of an Islam understanding. The Muslims that are living in Turkey want to have equality between men and women, want to in terms of human rights. So these religious groups are very much away from this centric structure of the society. So I think the government made a strategic mistake, and they are also confronting their own electorate. Um, there's one group, for example, is supporting the Istanbul Convention. So there were some cracks in Kadem, for example. So we talked about economy. Istanbul Convention was raised as an agenda item for these reasons. Has it been withdrawn? No, I don't think. No, it was not withdrawn from the agenda, because the situation is that if we say that there is no bad advertisement, Istanbul Convention, when it was opened for debate by the government, what the government actually did, that Istanbul Convention was known by everyone, and women had such a right that they can. So even apolitical people who did not know about it at all, they opened up the Istanbul Convention, they read about it, and even the electoral base of AKP is supporting this majority, but they are still supporting. And when they were faced with an intense reaction from the women, the government wants to put it more in the background, but we still know that it is being discussed behind closed doors. I'm not going to prolong my speech. I would like to talk about what's on the agenda. I will leave the floor to my other colleagues. So this is all from me. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, loud and clear. I am one of the lawyers from Trabzon Bar Association. I'm Yağmur Kahraman. I will be talking on two topics. Is there a problem? No, okay. The first topic is what are the tasks of the local governments based on Istanbul Convention, and what can be done in terms of the rising violence during the pandemic. First of all, Istanbul Convention, in terms of the fight against violence against women, provides certain rules to the universities, civil society, local government, central government, all segments of the society. The thought that there are certain traditional roles for women, men, these prejudices and biases, in order to eliminate all of such thoughts, in order to change the social and cultural, behavioral blocks for women and men, certain actions need to be taken. So the municipalities, in terms of the main philosophy, they need to ensure and men, and in order to bring women into social life, they need to develop different methods. Istanbul Convention assigns this task to the municipalities. For example, what can it be? How can we bring women into the society? For example, we can ensure that women workers are employed, or vice mayors could be women. So municipalities, by using these methods, they can bring women into the society and ensure equality between women and men. But before we move on to the Istanbul Convention, we need to also remember that we also have some provisions in our legislation, and local governments can also take over such tasks. I will only talk about 3 articles of the convention which assign tasks to the contracting parties who have undersigned the convention. So of the convention is referring to shelters, and it refers to that the metropolitan municipalities, and also in locations where the population is higher than 100,000, shelters should be built and measures should be taken.
For us, the municipalities with more than 100,000 population can open shelters, but in Europe this is 10,000. So one of the duties of the municipalities is to open shelters according to the Istanbul Convention, and the shelters should be in and in certain conditions. When we look at the number, sufficient number, in Turkey there are 144 shelters and 32 of them are opened by municipalities. In Trabzon we have one shelter, but for the second shelter we took the word, we took a promise as well. I wanted to highlight it. Another important factor is easy access to shelters. One of the important elements of shelters is easy access. This is very concrete. Materially, there needs to be access to these shelters with maximum one public transportation vehicle, for example. Another item is phone hotlines. In the relevant item, it is mentioned specifically. Assist the callers. There should be 24/7 hotline service, free of charge. Whatever language the victim of violence is speaking, it should be, the help should be in that language. And the person who is on the other line of the hotline should be able to provide assistance. In our country, we have hotline 183. And the hotline 183, although it is a hotline in terms of combating violence against women, lately it also started serving the veterans, disabled, so whoever needs help. So this is no longer dedicated to only violence against women. This is no longer functional, dedicated for violence against women. So there should be a separate line set up for violence against women. Another important practice is Kadis. As we know, Kadis is set up by the police, Turkish National Police of the Ministry of Interior, and it is an application you can access to through your smart device, smartphone. But in the remote part of the country, when there's a woman victim of violence, they do not have digital applications or smartphones. Another important function is the 25th article of the convention, support to women who are victims of sexual violence. The sexual violence center should be opened per 200,000 population. Let me talk about this center a bit. The person who is applying to this center first should keep all the evidence, and first this evidence is collected, such as sexual violence evidence, such as hair or any other proof, and then medical and psychosocial support is provided. Center should encompass all of these functions, but in Turkey we do not have any such centers. The number of these centers in Turkey is 0. So this is also an obligation of the municipalities, and these centers are of course a requirement in Turkey, but we do not have them. So the first topic was as such, and this was the topic was the duties of the local governments in terms of Istanbul Convention. Another topic is what do we do to combat violence against women when it increases during the pandemic. How long time do I have? You can continue, because the law is very important here. As we have seen in the beginning, we have colleagues in Fındıklı municipality who are working on this issue. They have women's council, they have the youth council, and they're all represented here. And this is a part of Meci collective work as well. So it's an important topic for us. Okay, then I can continue. Thank you very much. In the pandemic, violence increased. So what could be done to prevent it? As in Turkey, in the entire world, violence against women increased. In 12 months, between 15 to 49 ages, 243 million women subject to sexual or gender-based violence. In Turkey, only in March, 29 femicides happened, and 22 of them happened between 11th of March to the end of March. In April, 20 women killed by men and 20 women were found dead suspiciously. Women homicides were happened mostly in Istanbul and Izmir, and the most suspicious deaths happened in Antalya. 10 of them were killed in 16 of them were killed at their homes, 3 of them on the street, and 1 on a land. So when a research study was carried out in with the participation of 1,873 women, a majority of women said that violence increased during the pandemic. And 32% said that the spouses, their husbands, exerted violence. And 15% said the fathers, and 4% said the sons. So these data show that in Turkey, violence against women increased 27.8%. During the pandemic, when violence increased, how can we combat against it? Of course, this prevention starts with the local government's duties. Istanbul Convention brings some of the responsibilities for the local governments, and this combat is directly linked with these duties of the local governments. But in Turkey, even in ordinary times, we lack a sufficient number of shelters. They are not sufficiently accessible, and there are no sexual abuse or sexual violence centers, and Hotline 183 is no longer only functional, dedicated to women. So all of these factors show us that both during ordinary times and during the pandemic, we are insufficient in terms of violence against women. In Ankara, there was an increase of 38% violence against women. Since I don't have too much time, I didn't mention, but actually there are 4 main topics, important topics of Istanbul Convention: prevention, protection, prosecution, and collective policies or integrated policies. So actually women, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, universities, so all segments of the society have duties in terms of violence against women. So this increasing violence against women, in combating this, especially during the pandemic, when we look at the data from various women's organizations, Hotline 183, 155, 156, these hotlines became inaccessible due to the pandemic. Again, the police stations, gendarmerie stations rejected women's applications, and since there were insufficient shelters during the crisis, urgent shelter needs of women were rejected. So these are the observations, and at this point, women's solidarity is important. And during the times of the crisis, the demands were rejected by the police, by the gendarmerie, and they actually should not reject them. They should contact women's organizations, and women's organizations should provide solidarity together to combat this. Of course, women's organizations have a great responsibility in combating violence against women. In terms of being in solidarity with women's organizations, we need to consider the data that are collected from women's organizations, because the problems that I will share shortly would lead to some, we need to provide solutions, and the problems are the basis of these solutions. The support requirements that come to the applications show that women victims of violence could not go to hospitals due to the risk of contagion, and when children stayed at home due to the closure of the schools, they witnessed violence against their mothers. And only due to the pandemic, the women did not report the violence because they thought they could be contacted with the virus. And women postponed divorces, women postponed separation due to the pandemic. And in the law 6284, the law enforcement officers rejected due to the pandemic with the excuse of the pandemic, and women hesitated from calling these hotlines. And these are various calls made to the hotlines as well. So actually, in terms of combat, there are different duties that the women's organizations could do and women can individually do. Let me talk about some institutions. First of all, Istanbul Convention and the law number 6284 should be implemented efficiently and effectively. And during the pandemic and during the quarantine, we all stayed at our homes and we started using digital. And these violence applications should be able to made through the digital channels as well. And necessary legal aid to women should also be provided through digital channels, and live broadcasts, live trainings should be provided to women during the pandemic. And these hotlines and support lines should be dedicated for violence against, combating violence against women. And again, since you stay home during the pandemic, when you're a victim of violence, you are limited from reporting it. In this, a woman is in the same environment with the perpetrator, a relevant third person when they can file on behalf of women, and third person reports should also be considered effectively by the necessary institutions. Shelters, of course, in terms of the shelters, Turkey lacked capacity. We have only 144 women's shelters, and women's shelters became a really important necessity during the pandemic as well. What type of measures could be taken? How can we ensure sufficiency? There are social service centers of the municipalities that are not used, or there are some buildings that are not used, so they can be opened for women's use. Again, within the house, equality and collective labor should be encouraged. So cooking, taking care of the children should not be considered only as a duty of women, and they should not be normalized as women's duties. They should be collectively made. Again, during the pandemic, there is the situation of unemployment. And in here, gender inequality is again very obvious. And due to the pandemic, women who were working in the workplaces, when they took their leaves, or women were the ones who were dismissed first. So necessary urgent measures should, again, unfortunately, gender inequality is very evident. All of these institutions should carry out activities, as I mentioned, but what can we do? Let me briefly mention them. We should explain these women that there are urgent call centers, hotline 183, 155, 156 are available, and the bar associations are there for them. And to report violence, we need to stay strong, and it is a must for the law enforcement officers to take us to the hospital when we become victims of violence. And if we are staying in the same house with the perpetrator, we have the right to get a restraining order. We need to mention this, we need to explain this to the women. Again, we femicides. When women are threatened at gunpoint, they can ask for this gun to be seized by the law enforcement officers. And also, monetary assistance, again, is a right for women in terms of protection against violence. Again, the law number 6284, the law enforcement officers are showing the pandemic as an excuse to not enforce the law of 6284, but we need to raise awareness just to say that this is not the pandemic is not an excuse, and the law number 6284 should be implemented. The women might not know that they need to go to the hospital and take a battery report, but the accompanying law enforcement officers, but women should know their rights and tell the law enforcement officers that they should take that woman to the hospital. We should give this thought of safety, security to women, and this comes with a certain level of awareness. These are our duties. Of course, there are duties of the of the local government as well. But as I mentioned, one of the essential points of Istanbul Convention, NGOs, us, the bar associations, civil society organizations also have essential duties. So I'm ending my speech right now. I'm very happy to participate in this event, and thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Hela, I will get right into the topic because we have limited time. Thank you very much for the contributions and for your invitation. I will speak very briefly on what we are doing as a Trabzon Bar of the Executive Board of Trabzon Bar Association, and I am the head of the Women's Committee. For the last 4 years, we've been establishing stands in the most crowded and busiest street of Trabzon, and we tell women and men law number 6284 and Istanbul Convention. And contrary to what is thought, we get reaction more from men. And in the last stand that we organized, uh, should we withdraw from Istanbul Convention was a campaign that we organized, and men signed more in that petition to not withdraw from Istanbul Convention. And also we have legal aid, and legal aid is a service free of charge, is a legal counseling service that the state provides for you. And as a rule, if you have a salary or if you have a title deed in your name, usually your legal aid application is rejected. But we have seen such cases that the woman has a salary, but the husband holds the ATM card to get that salary, or the child is also going to school and the woman is paying for that. So with that salary, it's not possible for the woman to survive and also pay for the lawyer's fee. Or, for example, the woman has a title deed, but it is a hazelnut orchard, for example, and it is being managed by the father and the brothers as well. So we accelerated the process and we worked database of the municipality because a couple of documents need to be collected, and in order to accelerate the system and ensure that a lawyer was assigned to the women. And the third instance was, what did we do during the pandemic? Despite the curfews, there were two groups of professionals who could go into the homes. One was the bakers, the other was the pharmacists. So by cooperating with them, we had 20,000 little leaflets, pamphlets, which included information on the lines, the an active violence line 155, 156, and also violence prevention and monitoring center in Trabzon. This is an institution that is established by the Istanbul Convention that is affiliated to the Ministry